Okay, welcome to Let's Know Buffalo. Joe, let's get back and start talking about your story again.
No, we're going to do your story.
Oh, we're doing me first?
Yeah, do you know why? Because if we're talking about me, you're just going to talk about you anyways.
You're hurting my feelings.
No, I want to talk about you because with you, where we left off, you were talking about how you were going to flea markets and like flipping video games for a profit.
Yeah. So I was in college. I was bussing tables, bar backing, local restaurants. And then, again, I saw that niche for retro video games. And eBay had just really been, it was like a new website. And it's crazy to think that it's been 20-some years, right?
Yeah.
That eBay hasn't existed forever.
That it was new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for us that are in our late 30s, early 40s, yeah, I mean, it was something that was unique. I saw an opportunity.
Yep.
And then I started hitting the Walden flea market every weekend, buying old Nintendos, Super Nintendos, retro video games, taking them home, fixing them, cleaning them, and then putting an ad on eBay. And I was getting 4 times what I was paying.
Yeah, one of the things you said last time was because this was eBay's new, like you're saying, this wasn't like a thing to like flip a product like that. That people didn't know the value of these games that they were selling. So you said some of them you would get for like a couple bucks and sell them for like $75 or something.
So initially what I did was I would sell like a Nintendo with a package of games. I would just turn around and sell exactly what I bought. And I fixed it up and resold it. And then I started the games individually. I mean, I was paying $1 for some of these games that were
so crazy.
$20, $30, $40, $50, and even $100 sometimes when you got a super rare one.
Right.
And I remember for a while, I would put a package together. So I would always hold back the Super Mario games, like Super Mario 1, 2, and 3. I had Duck Hunt. And that was like a super good package. Like you get a Nintendo, you'd get 2 controllers, the gun, Mario 1, 2, and 3 with Duck Hunt. And I would sell those. Again, that was like the prime package. So I would put video game packages
How much
together.
would that go for?
At $125, $150.
And how much do they probably cost you?
Sometimes $20, $30.
That's amazing. So how many years did you do that before you opened a store?
So I did that. I did that all through college. From 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, all the way till I think I graduated. I was 25, just turning 26. I was 5 years into college, changed my major, so there was an extra year there. And before I even graduated, I had my first lease signed. So during college, I had opened a spot at the Walden flea market, so I just did it on the weekends.
How much did that cost at that time to open?
Initially, it was like $10 for a table. And then I had 2 tables. Then I had the flea market had different size booths, right, that you could rent.
You can't beat that so cheap.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the most expensive was like $60 for the weekend. I had a small storefront that I literally could close the door, put a padlock on. So I had a small store. Like you could walk into the store at the flea market. And so I would do the flea markets on the weekends, and I would do eBay during the week between college classes and at night. So that was like I quit my job, busting tables and bar backing, and I was doing those 2 things full time.
On a good day at the flea market, on a good like weekend, what would you
$2,000. Dude, I was.
And this is in what year?
2003, 4, 5.
That's amazing. So that what fascinates me, because I've never had a brick and mortar, to take that next step to go from, like, you have very little overhead doing that.
Yep.
Now you're going to sign a lease. Then you're going to have inventory, maybe employees. The cost probably goes up dramatically.
Sure. Right? And what I will tell you is that having that ability to do that on the flea market on a part-time basis, small and on the weekends, and not having a lease, that was proof of concept enough for me to know that I could go and sign a lease. Now, there's a huge difference between some of the big commercial vendors or big commercial landlords, right? and I won't name any names, but they want 5-10 year leases. I found a local store, a local landlord on Delaware Ave in Kenmore next to Condrell's, and it was 600 square feet. It was $600 a month, and I had to sign a 1-year lease.
Wow.
So for me, it was like, hey, this isn't going to break me. If this doesn't work after a year, all right, I'll use my degree. I'm going to go do something else.
So what other costs to open up in the beginning? Did you borrow money from anywhere? Was money that you saved?
So I did have some cash. I did have some credit cards. But I also had some money left over for my student loans. So when I got my student loans, I paid for my college 100%. Again, coming from a blue collar family, if I got a little bit of financial aid, not much, but what I accidentally did when I filled out my student loans is I checked the box for the maximum loan amount, just not knowing. I really didn't know any better. So my college cost X, my loan was for X plus 20,000 or 10,000. It was like $10,000 or $12,000. And that money, instead of going and buying a brand new car or spending it on stupid shit, I just left it in the bank. And when it came time to really invest in this, I took that money, I built out the storefront, bought the cabinets, bought some more inventory, and then it just kind of snowballed from there.
That's amazing.
So after my year lease was up, I extended it and we just went month to month. But then I had a business partner at the time, and we just basically, we worked part-time. He worked like 3 days a week. I worked 3 days a week. We were closed on Sundays, right? And I kind of scribbled on a notebook paper. I'm like, all right, this is working. Like, our doors are bursting open. Like, let's, if you did this full time, I could open up another store. I could do it full time. And he was just like, hey, listen, my wife's pregnant. I've got a growing family. This is just a hobby for me. This is not something that I want to do full time. And I ended up buying him out. We just added up the inventory. I bought him out for like 11 grand.
Wow.
And I turned that into another store, grew to 6 locations, and we were doing $3 million a year in sales. I had 50 employees. It was a big deal.
50 employees is a lot.
It was 25 grand a week in payroll, plus other expenses.
How long did it take you to get from the one store all the way to 6? How many years was that?
It was like 7 or 8 years. It was like one store per year was our average and our goal.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And again, had it grown to, I had conversation with franchising companies, people that wanted to invest. The goal was to grow it to like a GameStop. GameStop had 5,000 locations worldwide, but had I gotten it to 30, 40, 50 plus locations, now we ran into Amazon and the internet, which helped me grow the business, but also took over. Yeah. I mean, everything started to go digital. The systems went digital and technology started to take over. And, I found myself stop opening locations. And once I stopped, it's like the tide had turned, right? Like now we started to take on some debt, had a couple bad quarters. And I said, all right, unfortunately, I started shutting down some locations. And again, we had a great run. I made a lot of money. I made a ton of connections.
But let's go back to that. I mean, that moment, those are the moments that someone who's never run a business before, never been self-employed,
sure,
you just see someone successful and they just think like it's a smooth sailing. The failures and the setbacks are the things that, end up defining you. And so when you're on this run, opening up new store, when you start to hit bad quarters, like what internally are you going through when...
I think there's some panic, right? Like you're sitting down and I had a huge team, right? So I had a COO and a district manager and store managers, and we're breaking down the numbers per location, sales and profitability and things like that, trying to figure out, okay, where are we taking on water, right? Like what are the problems? And that you start borrowing money from the bank. And that's another thing, right? Like, all right, yeah, we're doing $3 million a year in sales, And now it's like I'm trying to plug holes by taking on debt to buy more inventory to sell and make payroll and do all these other things. And it's just like,
And people's like livelihood.
Yeah.
You're in control of that.
Yeah.
That probably, I don't know. That's just got to be such a hard thing to, the stress already of the numbers not working out, but then there's people on the other side of that.
Sure. Yeah. And I think especially, any entrepreneur or any business owner that has employees, it's incredible to grow something and have people along with you, but it's also understanding that they've got a mortgage and they've got kids and they've got wives and they've got car payments and bills to pay, and they're all relying on you. And that can be frightening. And I'll tell you, man, it's funny because like my wife complains that I sleep with the TV on at night, but that's the distraction for me to like not continue to think about work and all of the stresses, because it never gets shut off. When you're own your own business, when you're an entrepreneur, you can't shut it off at 5 o'clock and go home and say, hey, I'll deal with that at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I'll deal with that on Monday morning.
Yeah.
There's no stopping. There's no break. There's no rest. It's a constant go. And then you go on vacation and you're constantly on your phone.
Well, and like you said, like it's the day's not over at 5 o'clock. Even though if you're home and the stores are closed, like there's still someone who needs to pay their mortgage and they're expecting you to pay their paycheck.
Sure.
Like that, the weight of that has got to be so heavy when things start going down.
And I'll never forget. Now, again, fourth quarter in retail, Black Friday into the holiday season, Christmas, like that was our moneymaker, right? And obviously preparing with my team, the CEO and district manager, trying to figure out, okay, what do we got to do? And I'll never forget, going into January, the money dries up, right? In retail, like ebbs and flows. Every business has its ebbs and flow. And, after the week of Christmas, like January 1 comes, everybody's broke. They've overspent for the holidays. January is very quiet until you get into February, March, right? When people start getting their tax returns back, they start spending money. It's cold, it's dreary. So February, notoriously in retail, or at least in my business, was very slow. And it was like, all right, we made our money through the holiday season. Now we've got to start shutting down stores and combining them. And I'll never forget sitting down with the store manager. He was so mad at me that we were shutting. And he's like, you just woke up and decided to close the doors overnight? And I'm like, whoa, like, do you think this is an overnight decision? Like, this is months, if not a year coming, like, right? Like, we've tried to work on this on the back end. And unfortunately, there's some things and decisions that are above your head and your pay grade, right? But like, I had to talk him off the ledge. And, he ended up getting another job going elsewhere, but he was so mad. And I appreciated the passion for his job and his team and his store, right? He took possession and ownership of it, but he just didn't understand that the decision wasn't made overnight. Like this was, and for him, like, you got to go down and go get a new job. Like I'm 8, 9, 10 years later, I'm still dealing with the repercussions of the debt, the bad debt, and paying off the money that I borrowed. And like for me as an entrepreneur and the owner of that, like I'm still dealing with this shitstorm almost 10 years later.
Wow. Well, and even leading up to a point like that, you're talking about keeping the TV on for the distraction.
Yeah.
Like going in that day, that was probably not something that just that day was weighing on you. That was probably months of looking at the numbers and knowing like it might come to that.
Well, and so many people, especially in the world we live in today, social media, it's all wins. You're watching everybody's highlight reels, right? Like a lot of businesses that fail, I mean, you don't see the stuff that happens behind the scenes. And, and after I closed a lot of the stores, not knowing what I was going to do, I think I've talked about this before and I'm very open about it. I fell into a deep depression, right? Like I was depressed, doctor, medication, didn't know what I was going to do. I haven't worked for somebody in 15 years. I never worked a real job other than, bar backing and bussing tables and just that sort of stuff, right? Like a professional job with my degree.
Right.
It was like, what do I do now? I had a rental property and I was bringing in some income from that, which was really nice. I wasn't married yet. I had no kids. So I didn't have I had a mortgage, right? And a car payments, but I didn't have to support anyone else, which was a blessing in disguise, which gave me the ability to buckle down and start a new business, i.e. real estate. And that's what kind of drove me into real estate. And it's one of those things when, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you work for yourself, when your back is against the wall and you've got no other choice, what are you going to do? And I started, and again, I've talked about this before, Gary Vee and Grant Cardone, started listening to some of their podcasts because of their entrepreneurship and Grant Cardone being in real estate. And man, they hyped me up. Like they helped,
I remember you were
pump me up
on the Gary Vee train before.
Yeah. And a friend of mine had put me onto them, and I had no idea. I wasn't really listening to podcasts at the time. And so while I was flipping houses, I started flipping houses. What was on my headphones was like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone. And I'll never forget like Grant Cardone just talking about his thing was like, don't be a bitch. And I used to say this all the time. Like I would play it in my head, and my wife made fun of me for it for a while. But again, when there was a day that I would not want to get out of bed, or I was depressed, or I didn't want to go to work, it was like, don't be a bitch. Like you got it. You have to wake up and go to work. And unfortunately for men, be a man and do what you're supposed to do and show up.
Don't be a little bitch. It's funny because at that time, like for your first flip, I remember you went to see Gary Vee. There was like a speaking thing and you went to, but me not knowing you were going through what you were going through, it's just, I just saw you as, like those businesses, that chapter's over. Now you're on to this next thing that just assumed like, look, this guy just wins at everything, but so in between though, real estate and the stores, you got into the cell phone business, right? Was that in between?
Yeah, so I had bought into some cell phones. So T-Mobile brought
Metro
PCS to Buffalo. I had a friend that was working for them, and they wanted to open up some kiosks inside of the video game stores. So I was like, yeah,
really?
That's cool.
That's how that came to be.
Let's try that. And then I said, wow. I know my stores are struggling. How can I invest in this, right? Like, what does it take to open up some of these locations? So I signed up to be a dealer. They accepted me.
They weren't in this area before.
No, they weren't in this area. And what was really neat was T-Mobile was giving you they were paying the first $25,000 to build out your store, right? And I was able to build these stores for $25,000. Like, wow. I made sure I was laying flooring, I was painting walls. I was doing everything I could not to come out of my pocket. So I became an authorized dealer, which was great. And the initial year goes through. I opened up 4 locations in the first year, doing very well. The first award ceremony, we won like 4 or 5 awards, and everybody's like, "Who are these new guys?" Because most of the people in this industry, they're all national retailers, right? They have stores all over the country. So once the new guy, not a lot of new people come into the space. We came into the space, started crushing it, and literally within days, my phone was ringing from a dealer that wanted to buy us out.
Wow. So it was you did so well that the other people in that industry who owned other Metro stores, they were coming after you to buy you out.
Well, and the way I saw it is we had successful stores.
Wow.
So they wanted that piece, but also if I continue to open up stores, well, guess what? I'm taking over market share.
Right.
And we're growing, and they don't need more competition.
Right.
So they just buy out the competition before they get so big. And, through several months of negotiations, we end up selling the stores, the 4 locations. We both did very well. I had a business partner on it. And I ended up taking that cash, and again, instead of blowing it, I reinvested it, and I bought, and this is where my journey into real estate kind of starts, is I bought a triple, a 3-unit, and a 2-unit, which
That's
was
where I come into the
package
story.
deal. Yeah,
Because you were like, hey, I'm looking at these properties. Can you come with me?
sure.
And the deal that you had in front of you was incredible. And I remember
Still
calling
don't
you.
know.
I remember calling you and being like, honestly, like, you have to buy these.
Yeah.
You have to. They were such a good deal.
Yeah.
But that
And I didn't have quite enough money. I was close, but I ended up having to borrow like $20-some thousand from my parents. And I mean, God bless them. They lent me this money. It was no questions asked. They didn't charge me any interest on it.
that's
And
amazing.
I paid them back. Like, not only did I give them their money back, but I feel fortunate enough that I've been successful over the last few years, that I've done some things for them that,
That's amazing.
again, they'll, if I'm still alive and my dad passed about 2 years ago, my mom, she will never have to worry about paying her bills ever again. I promise you that.
That's amazing. What I love about both the buying the income properties, but also the Metro PCS, like that, they were just opportunities that were kind of there,
Sure.
and so many people would have passed those things
Sure.
up. But you just grabbed it.
I think one of the things that I'm good at recognizing as an entrepreneur and a business owner is when an opportunity presents itself, my gut instinct sort of takes over. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I passed on plenty of stuff that I look back and say, oh, had I not passed on that, or had I invested in that or purchased that, I would have done okay, right? But I think when the opportunity presents itself, I mean, we all have our stomach for, our stomach for different opportunities, right? And risk, right? Risk tolerance. Yeah, I've done well with the opportunities in front of you. And I think that's huge as an entrepreneur, or anybody, is taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented themselves in front of you.
Absolutely.
And
just
whether you're out
recognizing-
there seeking them, which I do a little bit of, right?
Right.
You have to.
And just recognizing that they're there if you're not seeking them.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big thing. I think that a lot of people, that opportunity might be right there and they don't realize there's an opportunity.
Also say that I've been guilty of this. Once you have some success and then you get comfortable, right? Then you almost stop seeking. You get a little lazy, get complacent. You stop seeking those opportunities, or you're just not as aggressive. And I find myself right there now.
But you're still aware of them.
I'm aware of them, and I want to get more aggressive again. And I continue to buy real estate and invest in real estate. Now I want to take that next step and do some development. And I'm on the phone. Like, you turn the page into 2024, and it's like, all right, what does the new year bring? And I'm like, I want to get more aggressive. I want to do bigger projects.
So the Metro PCS was between that and then the opportunity for your first investment properties, really, like that was a bridge sort of to going all in into real estate, right? So,
Yeah.
So you did your first flip, which was an amazing success.
And you were my real estate agent on
Yeah.
my first flip.
Can I tell the story? on
Sure,
that?
please.
It was such a fascinating situation because your first flip was a house that you didn't own.
Yep.
Again, there was opportunity,
Sure.
but I was not coming. It wasn't coming from a place of making money. It was coming from a place of helping your friend.
Sure.
You're,
Which was returning a favor. So she was my attorney. She had, my business attorney she had done a lot of work for me, knowing that I was in my 20s starting my business, didn't charge me very much for opening my LLCs and doing leases. And this sort of was my way to pay her back for her generosity towards me.
right. So her house is up for sale
Yep.
at this time, and she has, I believe, 6 children.
Yep.
So, when you're selling a house and you have kids, like, it's impossible to keep it like perfect all
Yep.
the time. And it was a beautiful house. It was lived in though,
Yeah.
you know, and it was listed with a top producing, well-respected agent.
Yep.
And the price started here and then kept coming down and kept coming down. And so then somehow you're talking with her and you get pulled in and you have the idea of, well, what if I came in and I helped you and I cleaned up the place, repainted it, maybe staged, did all this stuff, like, would that help sell? And the realtor told you, no, we got to just keep dropping the price. And again, your instinct was that something doesn't sound right about that.
So that was it. I mean, the homeowner had already moved out. They were marketing the house. It had been, and I bumped into her. I said, hey, now I don't have my real estate license yet. Like, I'm not really in real estate quite yet.
You just bought these other properties?
Just say, yep.
Yeah.
And, you know, she looks at me and she's like tearing up. She's like, Kevin, I don't know what to do. We've dropped the price. And now she's got to come to closing with money. So she's upside down. So she's going to owe money. She's not gaining. There's no profit when she closes. She's got to pull money out of her pocket. And I'm like, well, let's talk to the real estate agent. Let's see what's the feedback. Like, now I'm just curious. Like, I'm inserting myself. And I'll never forget, the real estate agent pulls up. I have no idea who she is at the time because I'm not in real estate. And, you know, the BMW and the high heels, and I hate to be stereotypical, but it was just like, she tried to qualify me. She was like, and who are you and why are you here? And I'm like, listen, I'm just trying to help my friend. Like, I'll spend the next weekend, 2 weeks, put a fresh coat of paint on this house to try to help you sell it. And she said, and we're in December. I'm not even in real estate. I know it's the shittiest time of year to try to sell a house. She just didn't want to take it off the market for fear of just losing the listing. Not only that, but dropping right? Like, dropping the price and maybe not getting to go back to market. She just wanted to keep dropping the price. And to me, in my head, I'm like, you're not listening to your client. She's telling you she's got to come to the table. Yeah, she's got 6 kids, 3 dogs. She's going through a divorce. She's got all these things. So I said to the seller, I said, take it off the market. Give me 2 months. I think I can do this for 10 grand and a month's worth of work.
Well, when you pulled me in to get my opinion to see, like, the other agent, honestly, she's a sweetheart of a person.
Yes. No issue.
But you pulled me in and we're like, does this make sense? And I looked through the house, I looked at the numbers, and I'm like, when you're like, is it possible that if we did these things that it would sell? And I was like, yeah, of course. Sure. And not only that, looking at the numbers, it doesn't even make sense that it didn't sell for the original list price. Right. Like, not only should you be able to sell it at the price we're at, we should be able to raise the price back up to where we were. And it wasn't
quite the crazy market. We were just peaking.
Yeah, we were just starting to see multiple offers and stuff. But so that's why it was almost kind of probably shocking on her end to hear, like, yeah, we should be, there's no reason you didn't get the original price you were asking for. We should raise the price to that.
Yep.
So, and we won't get into all the weeds of the whole transaction and all that, because there were some other things I was very curious and concerned, like, well, why didn't it sell them? There wasn't clear answers and whatnot. But on paper, I was like, this doesn't make any sense that it wouldn't sell for the original price you were at. So yes, I don't see how this plan wouldn't work. And so then you go in.
Yeah, I basically told her, I said, listen, I said, I brought in my own real estate agent. You know, we talked, we could get it back there. And I told her, I said, listen, I said, I'll put the $10,000 in that I think that we're going to put some fresh carpet, some paint, light bulbs, new garage door. There was a lot of digs into it. Was just a worn down house, right?
Lived in,
and every room was a different color. I put a little backsplash in, put some sweat equity into it.
But then it was like Kevin McMullen style. Next thing you know, I show up, you're like redoing the bathroom, and I'm like, what are you doing?
The bathroom.
I thought you were just painting this room. He's like laying tile.
So the deal that I made with her was, hey, listen, I'll get you all your money back, get you even, and then whatever I get back from my money that I put into it, great. And anything above that,
right,
it's just, if I make $5 grand off of it or $2 grand, or no expectations to make $20,000 right off of it. If I broke even, this was my repayment to you. Like, I'm going to help you get out of this. This helps me see if I can do this. Like, I'm flipping a house now. I don't own the property. I'm going to put a little bit of my own money into it. My brother helped me out, and I ended up putting $20,000 into it, 2 or 3 months worth of work. And fast forward, we needed 235 when all said and done. What did we list it for?
I think 250.
259, I think. You wanted to go 250. I pushed for 259, and we got like 285.
I looked it up the other day.
Yeah,
285.
So not only did I give the homeowner an extra like $5,000 on top of it,
you hit a home run.
I put like 40 grand into my pocket.
Yeah.
And I gave my brother like 15, and like, I'm like, this was just incredible. And I'll never forget the day going to your office, and you just piled up the offers, and I'm just like,
and it was not a normal thing to get multiple offers back then.
I think we had like 7 or something crazy. I don't even know.
That was amazing. That was an amazing, exciting day because, we were not expecting to. We were hoping to get what we were asking for.
Yeah.
Which was already raising the price where it just was.
I was just trying to break even and get my money back.
Amazing. That was amazing.
That was fun.
So that opened up the door for you. Where you're like, there's money to be made here.
Like, hey, I know what I'm doing. It was my first flip technically, and then it was go time. I was like, all right, let's buy another one. And then I remember buying a foreclosure in Amherst on Windermere.
Yeah, with the water in the basement. Is that it?
I'm sure. I just remember smoke stained. It was
there was
crack house.
You got your license shortly after this.
Yeah, and unfortunately for me, or unfortunately for you, but seeing the real estate agent split $18,000, I think it was $18,000, and I'm like, whoa. But also, just again, math, right? Being the entrepreneur, like trying to get into these houses, and volume.
It makes sense that most investors get their license.
My real estate license to be a real estate agent. I got it to self-serve,
right?
To sell my properties, to buy my properties, to get into a lot. It was a volume game, right?
So shortly after you got your license, though, you bid on a flip, and I had a contractor who bid on it.
Oh, that's right.
And and because you made up some crazy fucking like number, like you took your favorite numbers. You beat us by like $163 or something specific. And I'm like, of course. Do you have a strategy behind like where you come up with extra numbers to throw on there?
No. And it changes. Every deal is so different.
But that house though, there was like a foot of water in the basement.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were scared.
And the house was just smoke stained. Like the nicotine on every inch of this house. Like, not only did we use a degreaser, I had a company come in and clean the entire house, but then we had an oil prime.
Yeah.
When oil primer was still legal in New York. It's not legal.
You can't use oil-based primer anymore?
You can't buy it.
Oh my God.
You can buy it in a spray can. You can't buy it in a gallon.
Because Katie and I had a house that smelled like that, and that was the only way to get the smell out, the oil-based primer.
There are some like Kills and some other things that they have, but like the true like oil-based Sherwin-Williams.
That's the best for that.
I literally had to coat every inch of this house to cover everything, and it sealed it all in, and we repainted it, and it came out phenomenal.
The basement, though, was one of these things where foot of water in the basement, so everyone looking at it was concerned there's a basement problem. But what you bet on, which is the same thing that my contractor was betting on, was these walls look pretty good.
Yeah.
I bet if the power's on and the sump pump kicks on, it's just going to pump out this water. There's nothing wrong in here. And that's what happened.
And it comes back to, experience, right? Like going into some of these things. Now, listen, I've walked away from plenty with foundation issues. I'm not a contractor myself. They're extremely expensive to repair when the walls are caving in.
Right.
It's out of my league. That's not what I want.
But this one was you pop the power on, drain the basement, nothing wrong with the basement.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So you got into the flipping game. You got your license to self-serve.
Yep.
Somehow, you fast forward a few years, you're not only one of the top agents in Western New York, but your price per sale is like way up there. You're listing $1 million houses.
Yeah.
How did that transition happen where you're just, an investor, so to speak, and you're like a luxury specialist?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm a luxury specialist, but you sell a couple
Kinda.
$1 million properties every year. And yeah, I think being well connected, right? And now that I'm 41 going on 42, the circles that my friendship circles and business entrepreneurs, being friends with other business owners. I sit on the board of Make-A-Wish.
I'm going to say charitable. You've been on Make-A-Wish for a long time.
Yep. That's been 7 or 8 years. Chair of the gala committee. My wife and I, the last 2 years, were vice chair and chair of the Bison Luncheon, which again, my investor brought us into that. But just being well connected, and that's a big thing in any sales that you do, but especially here in Western New York, has done really well for me. So I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy helping people buy their houses. It wasn't my ultimate goal to be a real estate agent, but being a real estate agent, flipping a couple houses a year, and now I own 25 rentals. The 3 of those together, they all play off of each other. And I really enjoy real estate. And it gives me an advantage being in sales and a real estate agent, understanding construction, understanding investment property, understanding numbers and cap rates and return on your money and things like that. So I can speak a couple different languages. It's not just, hey, I'm selling you your home. I can sell you your investment property. I can sell your commercial. So all those kind of play off each other. And there's an added trust of expertise that I sort of bring to the table because I'm investing myself, right?
Would you say of all the things you do, the time-wise, is real estate sales, being an agent, what you do more of now?
Initially, it wasn't.
Right.
Because that wasn't my goal. But the last few years, I very quickly went, I think my first year, I don't even know if I sold $1 million worth of real estate, which is not a lot at all, right? I sold a couple houses, to this year having my best year, or last year, 2023, doing 12 million in sales, right up about the top 50 in real estate agents in Western New York out of 35 to 3,800, is a pretty big deal. Like, I'm right up there, as you know, as you are yourself. It just kind of snowballed and just kind of happened that way. So
kind of organically.
Yeah,
you weren't even, that's what was so cool to watch, is you weren't putting yourself out there.
All word of mouth,
yeah,
like all referrals, which I greatly appreciate. I wasn't buying leads. I wasn't buying billboards, and I have no knock to that, right? Like, there just was none of that. I almost didn't even want that, right? Because I wanted to
focus on investing,
right? So now I find myself, last year, I bought several rentals, but I think I did one less flip because my time has been spent helping clients in sales, right?
Do you enjoy the sales part more than you thought?
I do. I love helping people. It's one of my favorite things to do, is selling somebody's house or finding their dream home and working with people. And when we're both on the same page, like, I get so fired up because I get emotionally invested in the transaction with the people, and there's no greater feeling, right? Like,
yeah, man,
the adrenaline rush is like winning the bid for myself or selling my own flip or rental, right? Like, when those things are done, I get that same sort of adrenaline rush.
Absolutely. So now, where we are right now, like, what are your goals moving forward with everything, not just real estate?
Again, I'm still focusing on being a sales agent, right? Like, things are going really well there. This year has taken off again, continuing, hoping to grow. I've got a couple rentals under contract that are being worked on, doing some more investing. I've got some flip opportunities coming up. But I've also had conversations for development. An investor of mine wants me to build a house with him.
That's cool.
I've looked into some other businesses, some laundromats and things like that. I've taken some stabs at those. But I do want to buy some bigger properties. I want to build some bigger properties. And I've had meetings and talks. So something's going to happen here. It's just
exciting.
What is that opportunity? What's next? And bigger things are coming. I'm not saying that I'm bored with rentals or the flips. I just need more challenge.
That's amazing. So another question though, how did you buy the Lamborghini? Is there a story behind that?
What do you want to know? How did I buy it?
Well, wasn't there like, did it have to do, was it a specific, you just always wanted a Lamborghini, or did you flip something and that like
No,
something funded that specifically?
one of my hobbies is I have a sports car, and I know plenty of guys that have multiple sports cars. My rule was always just like, have one, you buy it used, you buy it a few years old, low miles. I drive it for a year or two, have fun with it, sell it for what I close to what I paid for it, right?
Because I remember you telling me that back when you had a Viper,
Yeah.
that most people lose money on cars. You rarely ever lost.
No, because I
money on
never
cars.
bought them new. I always bought them used, let the depreciation drop off them, a few years old. And again, a lot of the stuff I was buying was not super expensive by any means. So I would buy it, play with it for a couple of years, and then sell it. Even if I sold it for a few $1,000s less than what I paid for it, the miles didn't go up very much because I'm not driving it all the time. It wasn't a daily driver. So I found a little niche where I was sort of like car hacking. I would buy it, play with it, drive it, enjoy it, sell it in 2 years, put a couple thousand miles on it. I wouldn't get hurt on it. So then I went from Corvette to Viper to Corvette to R8, and then the Lamborghini came, and I started searching around for them, and so it's wild to me because of how much extra business I gained last year off of people in the car circle or reaching out to me on Instagram, shows, hey, you own a Lamborghini. You either, hate me for owning a Lamborghini, which it's just the world we live in, or you're like, wow, he must really know what he's doing and he's successful at what he's doing.
Yeah.
I want to work with him.
Yeah.
And that's brought out a lot more business for me. And that's so
crazy
that it's paid for itself. And I'm just like, my accountant was even like, hey, Kev, you got to slow down with the Lamborghini stuff on social media. And I'm like, Mike, I said, I did an extra $4 million. I can point to $4 million in sales, extra sales from last year to this year,
because of
straight from the car group and the friends that I've made and the people I've met directly owning this car.
That's incredible.
And so I'm like, well, I'm not writing it off by any means, but to me, like, that is a great expense. It's a hefty payment, right? But I'm going to own it for 2 years and I'm going to flip it and buy something else. And I may have driven a Lamborghini and it cost me $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. Okay, whatever.
But that's amazing. 4 million in sales directly from that. And if you were driving a Ford Explorer, that would not be the case.
It just opens up so much more doors, and people want to talk to me about it. And then they find out I'm real estate, or they see on Instagram that I'm in real estate. All right.
Shout out to Ford Explorers, because I drive a Ford Explorer and I love it.
But it's really cool. It's something that I enjoy. There's not a lot of things that I spend money on. I enjoy having a nice cars.
That's just amazing. Well, anything else?
But I will also say, twofold, right? Like the Lamborghini, yeah, there's an expensive payment. I own 25 rental properties, and I can tell you that the payment is not coming out of my renters, the profit that I make from that, my passive income, which is not so passive, owning rental property, right, is paying, if this is after all my other bills are paid, like, it's just extra money. And wholeheartedly, I could pull out 4 or 5 of my rentals that are paying the profit from those out of the 25 are paying for that Lamborghini. I'm not really paying for it.
That's amazing.
And I'm still building equity, and the mortgage is being paid down, and I'm taxed, writing off, right, the depreciation of the properties on my taxes. Real estate, I've never made more money in the last 6 years than any other business, and it is a truly incredible vehicle. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid from day one.
Vehicle like the car you're talking about?
No.
Or the vehicle of real estate?
Real estate as a vehicle.
I thought you were talking about the Lamborghini is an amazing vehicle.
That is an amazing vehicle.
When you took me for a ride, it was kind of scary. I'm not much of a roller coaster person. When we were flying on the throughway in between, we
were not going above the speed limit. It feels like you're going fast because it's small.
You're so low to the ground that it's a wild ride.
And you just get used to it. And I sound really douchey saying this, but you with anything, you get used to it. And when I go to my garage and there's a Lamborghini sitting there, it's not as special as it once was when I first bought it, which is crazy to think. Like so, it's terrible to say. Like, I love it, and I know it's super cool, right? And like all the kids in the neighborhood or wherever I drive it, like people come out of the woodwork and come over and I'll talk about it all day long. But you just the more you have or the more you get, sometimes you almost forget, right? And that's with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's important to stop and smell the roses, because you're like, man, look at that. Who would have thought a kid from a trailer park would have 25 properties, a Lamborghini, multiple businesses? That's an amazing story.
My Lamborghini cost more than the first house that I bought, which is really cool to think.
Like double, probably.
I'll tell you a lot. Just that.
Anything else you want to say? I think we covered between the first episode and now, like.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of my story where I sit here, right? Like, I'm sure in another couple of years we could do this again and there'll be more on my plate.
I can't wait till that time.
But I honestly wholeheartedly believe, when I was in retail building the businesses and things like that, I was looking into the future. But now that I'm in real estate, I say this all the time, that I feel like I'm on a path I could do this for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Whether it's being a real estate agent, having rentals, flipping houses, there's going to be some sort of real estate, developing things like building houses, building apartment complexes, stuff like that. But I think I've finally, in my 40s, or I got into real estate when I was 35. I joke, I'm just like, all right, I finally found what I want to do when I grow up.
That's amazing.
Took a while to get here, a lot of different things.
Right.
And I'm not saying, and it may not even be forever, right? But I believe that, especially my rentals, if you know anything about investing, the goal there is, unless I need to, I'm never going to sell them.
Right. Because
they'll pay themselves down. I'll refinance them. I'll take the money out, use that. And then when I pass on, I will pass those rental properties to my daughter or my kids when that time comes, and then they will take the reins and they can sell them and take whatever I haven't,
right.
Whatever equity is still left in them.
Right.
They can sell them or they can take them.
They'll literally have millions of dollars worth of assets that they will give them options.
100%.
But that one of the things we talked about in our first episode was you can't just figure out like, okay, I want to do this. You got to just do something.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it leads you on a path that you're not expecting, and you got to just go along for the ride. So like the fact that, like you said, you're in your 40s and now you feel like after all the success you've had, though, but finally like you're in the lane that you're meant to be in. But if you didn't start, selling video games out of a flea market, like you may not have ever ended up here.
And that path is crazy because I went from selling video games and owning video game stores, and that's how I met my attorney, to flipping her house, but having no idea that I wanted to flip a house. But when I flipped a house, it was like the light bulb went out. And so I did it again, and I did it again. And it's just, it's amazing to follow that path. And I think that's what's going to be incredible, and what we've already kind of learned doing this podcast for just the first few months is I truly love listening to people's stories. And they don't have to be entrepreneurs, they don't have to be business owners, but their path and their success and what roads led them to where they are today, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think the best advice for people is that you're going to go on a ride, and you just got to learn to just go along with it and enjoy it, because there's nothing like waiting for you at the end of the ride. It's not like there's this home run and like, okay, life's over, I won. No, you're going to have to keep.
Is even when you do hit that home run,
right, you got to go up to bat. Exactly.
You can't just stop.
It's not like you have this goal of, okay, I want to sell $10 million worth of real estate this year, and at the end there's a gold jacket waiting for you. So never have to sell a house again.
What the biggest kick in the ass was this year was like, all right, I jumped from 7.5 or 7.6 million last year to 12 million this year. January 1 comes and I'm at zero again, like restart, like do it all over
Exactly.
again. And just when I'm like, oh, I can breathe, it's like, no, you got to hit the reset button.
Exactly. And so going along for the ride, and also just always being open to opportunity,
Yeah.
because it's just, you're not ever done. Like, just going to get up and it's a new day every
I
single
think
day.
that's one of the big things about investing in real estate, which I enjoy, because I've flipped houses that I never owned. I've had owners hold mortgages for me before, and I've purchased properties. Everything can be a negotiation. Everything in life is a negotiation.
Yeah. Like
Everything.
getting your kid to go to bed.
100%.
Big negotiation.
Yeah. I watch a little
Big
5 minutes of Bluey on my phone,
Yeah.
and then I
They're
show like
born negotiators.
100%. And I love to negotiate. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do. Is like, I've got a great feel for that. That's what makes me a good real estate agent. But you know, I think it serves well in life. I think negotiating is like common sense, right? You either have it or you don't. And I'm sure you can learn, but I think you have it or you don't. I will get further in life on my common sense than my degree from college. And that's just what I believe.
Well, amen to that. I think that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Let's Know Buffalo. And you got anything else you want to say?
Nope. Talk to you next time.